At 5:42 in the morning, there I was, standing in my driveway, clutching a bag of rock salt, watching my HOA President Priscilla Kemp fishtail a stolen snowplow down the cul-de-sac like she'd just washed down 3 espressos with a shot of tequila. 14 degrees outside, breath thick enough to write my name in Madeira, and there's Priscilla, hair shellacked against the wind, heels clicking on frozen pavement, a look on her face like she owns the place, which, in her mind, I guess she does. She just sees my walk-behind plow at dawn, waving a sheet of paper that looked like it came off her home printer, something she called an emergency board resolution. She'd driven it about, as well as a cat drives a school bus, plowed it straight into a snowdrift, left it blocking the only exit from our street, then wandered off like she was done with her chores. That machine just sat there in the middle of the street, big, yellow, helpless, getting swallowed by the blizzard. The kind of ice storm that turns everything to glass, makes every step a coin toss, and has the city folks up on the main road counting blessings they don't live at the end of Cedar Ridge. The freezing rain was drumming on my roof, clicking against the windshield, turning the world into one big slip-and slide. And somewhere under that growing iceberg was my plow, her pride, and for reasons only she understood, 3 trash cans with aesthetics only written on them. Why? Who knows? Sirens started wailing in the distance. Not that there's a fire kind, but the someone's got to get to the hospital kind. And now they weren't going anywhere. That's my introduction, I guess. Caleb Danner, 41, divorced, self-employed software guy, bought into Pinebrook Summit because I love winter, minding my business, and making things in my basement. 3 years ago, the neighborhood looked like a Norman Rockwell painting, tree-lined streets, real neighbors, kids actually playing outside. I bought a little walk-behind snowplow because after the first winter, I learned that the city won't bother with our cul-de-sac until spring. The hill's too steep, 8% grade, quarter-mile long. We turn into our own little snow island. But nobody told me about Priscilla. She's got hair that laughs at wind chill, heels that you never met salt, and a clipboard she holds like a cop with a badge. 53, works in real estate staging, treats the neighborhood like it's her personal open house. Ran for president promising elevated optics, whatever the heck that means, and won by 4 votes. The store-bought cookies probably helped. I didn't vote. Should've. Live and learn. First came a notes. Per HOA Harmony, no equipment of conquest stored in view. Written in gold on cream cardstock. She meant my plow, which was behind a 6-foot privacy fence you couldn't see through unless you had a ladder, which turns out she did. Fines started showing up after I shoveled paths for the Hendersons next door. Sweet old couple in their 80s, shouldn't be out shoveling ice. $50 per berm. She counted for. She even blasted out an email about unlicensed snow operations. Charge nobody. I just like seeing neighbors stay upright on the sidewalk. My lawyer buddy almost had a stroke laughing when I forwarded him that email. And then the spying. She crouched behind bushes at 6 a.m., camera in hand, looking like an angry marshmallow in a puffer coat, snapping photos of tire tracks like I was running a chop shop. When I pointed out that our CC and RS said nothing about snow equipment, she taped up a new, temporary rule on the mailbox. No plow devices. Board approval pending. Translation. I just made this up. So I took a picture of her sign, then the page and the rules, sent both to the board with a subject line that said ? 2 board members replied. They hadn't approved anything. Third was Priscilla's sister-in-law. Radio silence. Forecast called for ice, half an inch at least, starting at 5:30 a.m. I did what any half-responsible adult would. Fueled up, checked the shear pins, set my alarm early. At 5:12, out there warming up my plow, I see headlights, Priscilla rolling up with 2 HOA volunteers. I swear their reflective vests were last year's Halloween costumes. One was Jerry, 3 doors down, guy I'd jump-started more than once. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Confiscation per aesthetics authority. Priscilla boomed, reading off a sheet labeled Section 12B. There is no Section 12B. I told her that. She ignored me, wheeled my plow out to the street like she'd won it on a game show. I filmed everything on my phone because, well, you have to, right? Jerry mumbled about following orders. The teenage volunteer looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. I asked if Priscilla even knew how to run the thing. She just shrugged, said, "How hard can it be? Push the lever. Go forward." She cranked it, kicked the side panel, and suddenly it lurched forward, rammed straight into her own Live Laugh lamppost sign. Perfect. Lodged it right at the narrowest spot on the street, right where the water drains on both sides. Couldn't have picked a worse place if she tried. Then the freezing rain started, right on cue. Within minutes, my plow was frozen in, stuck solid, a monument to HOA power trips. She tugged, she rocked, nothing moved. Ice grew by the second. She looked at me. I looked at her. Not a word. Then she walked away, leaving that hunk of machinery blocking all 42 homes on our street. The phone call started rolling in fast. First was a nurse trying to make her hospital shift. Next, a man whose wife was having chest pains. Then me, yeah, I called too. A city sand truck pulled up at 6:15, took one look at the blockade, radioed the fire department. Hospital was paging in patients, nobody could get through. I was close enough to hear the city driver on the scanner. We got a whole snowplow sitting sideways on Cedar Ridge. Gonna need a wrecker and maybe some answers. Fire inspector showed up a little before 7. Guy named Patterson, faced like he's seen it all. Walked up, checked the mailbox where Priscilla's sign still fluttered, read it like the punchline to a bad joke, then muttered, "Interference with a designated snow route." I'd never heard that said like it was a threat, but he had the citation pad out before I could blink. 2 tickets, one for blocking the public right-of-way, one for operating equipment without authorization. He asked to move the plow. I showed him my phone. The whole thing, 3 minutes of Priscilla's greatest hits, plus a screenshot of the CC and RS. He watched it twice. Second time, he actually smiled. Priscilla tried to argue, said this was a private community, she was just keeping up the standards. Patterson pulled out a city map, pointed at our street highlighted in neon orange. Designated plow route since 2008 when they built the hospital. You just blocked emergency access. And then things really took off. The city risk manager, Deborah Chun, called the HOA insurer at 7:30. I know because she called me too, one of my video. The insurer asked, "Who moved the plow?" Every finger pointed at Priscilla, still on her porch, white boots frozen, blanket wrapped around her like she was in some Netflix drama. The insurer's people said things like willful negligence and exclusion of coverage. The HOA? On its own. By lunchtime, Priscilla's house was the only one still buried under 6 inches of ice and slush. The rest of the street was clear because the city winched my plow loose at 9:20, handed it back with a note. Mind giving us a lane? So I did. 40 minutes later, the street was open. Neighbors came out in bathrobes to cheer. Mrs. Henderson brought me coffee. Her husband shook my hand and called Priscilla something that rhymed with ditch. Meanwhile, Priscilla was escorted to the clubhouse by 2 police cruisers for what they called a voluntary statement. She signed off on 2 citations, a bill for emergency response, overtime for the tow, extra salt, the whole disaster. Total came to $2,473. I know because the city CC'd me on the invoice by accident. And because this is America, the local news showed up before noon, a Channel 7 van, reporter with a smile you could see from space. She asked Priscilla for a comment. Priscilla said it was all out of context. The reporter asked what context makes it okay to block a hospital route. Priscilla had no answer. She spun around to storm off, and, wouldn't you know it, her boot hit a patch of black ice by her mailbox. She grabbed at her topiary shrub, which gave way, and she slid sideways into a snowbank shaped exactly like Ohio. The camera caught every second. That night, the HOA board held an emergency meeting. Clubhouse at 6, all 3 members, everybody in a mood. They'd gotten a letter from the insurer, stamped denial of coverage due to willful negligence. Lawyers said Priscilla had no authority, caused a public hazard, cost the HOA its liability protection. The board voted to suspend her presidency on the spot, pending a formal hearing. They also voted to bill her for any damages. Harold, the retired accountant, read the motion with the glee of a man crossing something off his bucket list. 2 weeks later, hearing day, Priscilla showed up in a Navy suit with a lawyer who looked young enough to be her grandson. The board laid it all out: insurance denial, my video, city citations, bills, testimony from 11 neighbors about years of power trips. Her lawyer said she meant well. Harold read Section 7 of the CC&RS. President can't create rules without board approval. Had she gotten any? She admitted no. Vote was unanimous. Priscilla out as president, banned from the board for 5 years, and on the hook for every penny, $3, $9.12, from emergency response to legal fees to the cost of all those certified mailings. She stood there in the freezing clubhouse, mascara streaking, staring at the bill like it might shrink if she just willed it. She tried to speak, to argue, but nothing came out. For the first time in 3 years, the woman with the iron fist and the laminated clipboard was silent. Her lawyer whispered about appeals. She shook her head. Board members packed up, left her standing there, clutching the papers that spelled out every dollar of her fall from power. So, let me ask you, when somebody's pride ends up frozen in the street, who really pays the price? Was justice served, or was it just another day of neighborly chaos with a dash of karma? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you've ever stared down an HOA dictator, or just love a story where the little guy wins, hit subscribe and tell me your wildest HOA disaster. Because out here in Pinebrook Summit, sometimes you just have to shovel your own path to justice.